Hello and welcome to another episode of Parliamentary Conversations in the Commonwealth, a podcast from the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, better known as the CPA. The CPA promotes knowledge of the constitutional, legislative, economic, social and cultural aspects of parliamentary democracy and supports parliamentarians from across the Commonwealth in strengthening their democracies, promoting the rule of law and safeguarding human rights. In this episode, we're joined by Honourable Mmabatho Tembe, Deputy Speaker of the KwaZulu-Natal Legislature and one of the youngest ever to hold the role. Her story charts a compelling rise from community organising in council chambers to presiding over legislative proceedings on one of South Africa's most dynamic provinces. As a young woman navigating political power, public service and institutional change, Honourable Tembe shares insights on leadership that's grounded, forward-looking and unapologetically inclusive. This conversation dives into the evolving face of democracy in South Africa and what it takes to lead with both conviction and care. Thank you for joining us, Deputy Speaker Tembe. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so honoured. I'm so excited. It's quite a surreal experience being here in the Bahamas today.
Oh, well, we're very pleased to have you, and thank you so much for agreeing to be on our podcast today. So I wanted to delve a little bit into your background and how you sort of got into politics and really what motivated you to enter public service and this realm.
Sure. So I didn't pursue politics. Politics pursued me, should I say. So I was in University of KwaZulu-Natal. I did honours in psychology, but I did a Bachelor of Social Sciences in psychology and anthropology. But further pursued my honours in psychology. I wanted to be a counselling psychologist.
Yeah.
And I thought that was my path and that's where I was going. I finished my degree and then I worked for the Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Durban University of Technology as an academic advisor for her. Academic researcher. Then I became an academic development advisor. Afterwards at the DUT for the health sciences. And that's where I think my scope into how I probably navigated into politics came.
Yeah.
So at the Department of Health, where I did academic development advisor, I was dealing with a lot of students that came to me. We did these one-on-one interactions specifically for first-year students. And, they'd come into the office. We'd have to discuss things like how do they manage their time, how they're integrating into university, how is this happening for them. And we did classes called Surviving and Thriving, which was time management and a whole bunch of stuff. But it was dealing with the psychosocial issues of a student in first year so that they can be able to survive and thrive, basically. Yeah. What I found is that it's so difficult for these students because they're already coming from backgrounds that are so hard. By the time you get to university, it's almost like you're setting them up for failure. And the issues were so big. I couldn't fix you coming to school. And the reason why you're not concentrating in class is because you're hungry. And you come from poverty or there's no money or these are the certain issues that you're dealing with. So I was struggling with the one-on-ones. And that's why I thought, psychology is great, but I don't know how to sit in a chair right now when you need help and I can give you almost immediate intervention unless I literally give you money to feed you. But how is that working? How is that helping? So that's where my love for wanting to be part of fixing the system, where I wanted to be more involved. I started something called Girl Talk during that time. And Girl Talk was, I just brought a whole bunch of first-year students together to try and have open discussion. I think that was my first point of public participation, if I probably think about it. And we're having discussions about the society they're in and how it's like now. What are they doing? What are they faced with? How do we help? What are the other sort of institutional things we can help with and discuss? How do we get together as young girls to try and help each other? And that's where it actually started. And then the politics side, I had friends who were politicians. I wasn't necessarily a politician. They were young councillors. They are dynamic. They were smart. And I was came from the academic side thinking that I was going to get into academia and, that's the path. But they were with obviously being friends who speak about a bunch of stuff. And they were like, have you thought about getting into politics? I was like, not really. I know that I was part of the political party I was in, but I never thought I wanted to be actively involved as a public servant. Yeah. And they said, look, well, they think I'm the best fit and I want to have societal change. This is a platform that I can get into. And then, not to labor on the point, 2016 elections, I put my hand up and I became the first Black councillor in a white ward. Wow. And I'm putting this in inverted commas because it's quite a mixed ward now, but previously white dominated ward. And became a councillor. I was quite young. I came into it pregnant, which that actually becomes quite an interesting story in my life, becoming a single mother, and then that influences a huge part of the decision making that I make. And then, I was a whip for community services. I was a councillor for 5 years. It was hard. Baptism of fire, but no better place to learn about politics and being the core face with people, speaking to people and right in the middle of it. And being a ward councillor is quite different to being a PR councillor, which is a proportional representation councillor in our country. Means you also directly elected by the residents of their place. So they hold you accountable to such a large degree. I mean, you never sleep. Monday to Sunday, you're busy, you're with the residents all the time. So that was being a councillor, and it was amazing. It's a time I'll never take. Will I become a councillor now again? I don't think so. It's very, very difficult, and I commend all the public representatives or our councillors, because dealing at the core face with people and communities every single day is very difficult, and it takes incredible strength. And then I put my hand up to become a member of the Provincial Legislature at the time, where one of the young, Christopher Papas, he became a mayor, one of our youngest mayors, and I took his place in the legislature. I was a spokesperson for social development at the time, so I really took the parts of my anthropology and social work, and I was very lucky to get social development and be the spokesperson, because at the time our party was in opposition. Right. So I spoke a lot about women's issues, youth issues. So I got to use a lot of my psychology background. Yes, with the multidisciplinary approach, and understanding societies and the type of interventions that society needs. And I had to also quickly learn a lot about budgets and how that budgeting and how that influences. So the legislature policy side is where I got to get more of my teeth in. What I was never expecting is to become the deputy speaker. Yeah. In the 2024 election, we went into a government of provincial unity. Yes. And with that, I was elected as the deputy speaker, one of the youngest in the province, the youngest female in the province, actually. I think there's a younger person than me. I think he's 1 year younger than me. I think he's a male, but I'm definitely the youngest female in the speakerships. I think that has existed. If I'm not tooting my own horn here. I stand to be corrected. And that has been up to now, and I'm the deputy speaker, and that has been incredible. Did I see myself becoming the deputy speaker at this age? No. Do I think I deserve to be in this space? I will say yes. And I'm saying yes for other women who feel like they don't deserve to be in spaces that are mind-blowing and that they feel like it was never their time. And that's a thing that I'm always fighting, is that we're always fighting as young people, is that it's never our time because you have to be a certain age. And imposter syndrome is a huge thing amongst young Black women. So I always try when I enter a room to say I deserve to be here. And if I do not deserve to be here, I must work as hard as possible to make sure that whoever else is seeing me sees that she does deserve to be there. Yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. No, I mean, that was amazing. And I really loved that, you started off in something different, and that's what helped you sort of find that path. And Girl Talk, is that still continuing at the moment, or?
I left academic development, and my boss at the time also left. She immigrated. So I don't think it continued, which is quite sad. But when I was a counsellor, I tried to implement it in certain parts of things that I do, like The one time for August Women's Month, I got a bunch of girls between the ages, I think it was 18 and 24, and we were assisting them with some of the soft skills they needed for searching for jobs and CV writing and interview skills, just where I could, outside the council stuff that I do, that I could still impart in my community. Because sometimes as a councillor, you being more reactive to situations than proactive, you don't get a lot of time because you're dealing with resident issues all the time. So in spaces where I could, I would be more proactive. I also was part of my political party's women's network, where I got to represent our party in the Women's Parliament, which is sectoral parliament that was now I get to be a part of, surprisingly, but I was a delegate at the time and I was still a councillor. So that also helped me, equip me a lot in trying to navigate sort of women's issues and young people's issues in the spaces that I could.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think just on the point that you made about, that imposter syndrome and being young, Black, competent and female, you face so many barriers with, embracing all those different identities that you have. What advice would you give to someone navigating the same field as you, as a young Black woman, trying to get into politics and facing that imposter syndrome as sort of, you're experiencing that barrier from yourself a lot of the time, as well as society. So what advice would you give? How would you navigate that?
I think it's easier when you see someone that looks like you in spaces of power. And I think that, and I said this in my speech going in, is that representation is so important so that you can see yourself in that person. So I was, the advice that I would give to someone now is that there are people like me here, and you can make it too in the age that you are. You don't have to wait to be a certain age or much more older to feel like you represent those spaces. I think so many times older people tell us to wait, not your turn, not now. And I say fight to those voices, but also see in other parts that there are women who are doing dynamic things who are young. Outside of politics, I think in business and law, as doctors, in NGOs, young girls are starting NGOs to help other young girls. I think don't only look at the political space. The political space you want to get into is really great, and we're trying to make strides, but the examples of other young Black people, young Black women who are making those strides in other aspects and aspects and avenues where they're going. But also don't give up and don't listen to those voices. That voice still happens to me today. Why are you here? Who told you should be here? Do you deserve this? Have you worked hard enough? Other people have been doing this for 20, 30 years and still don't have it. So who do you think you are? What makes me different? But I am here. I have just walked through the store. Now I have to prove myself all the time. But in doing that, I think the way I fight my imposter syndrome is constantly learning. So I encourage people to learn, finish studies, go to school, do a certificate, put your hand up. Even if you think you know it, go back and know it again. So keep yourself knowledgeable so that it can also strengthen you, and it can start killing the little bit of imposter. Self-doubt. So make yourself knowledgeable enough so that you can start contributing. And also don't wait. Don't wait for somebody to say, hey, let's do this. Initiate something, start something, and believe in yourself you can do that. So, and I speak a lot about that because I am in my political party again. I'm a facilitator for something called Sakisizwe Youth Leadership. Sakisizwe means building a nation. So we have a cohort all the time, a group of about 13 and 14 young people, and half of them are girls in our cohort now, and half is female, which is really great. So imparting that knowledge in the young people that are growing up, I'm actively trying to be a part of it. So I'm not just becoming the deputy speaker and then I sit there and I'm perched, but I'm also doing something actively to make sure I'm raising more young leaders. And that's very, very important. We need to do that because I always say to them, you need to come for my job. That's what you need to do. I'm not going to be here forever. I'm not going to be young forever. My issues will evolve. I will speak about other things. But as a young parliamentarian, a young politician now, I want you to know right now, work for it because you can see it's possible. And I'll do everything in my power to help to mentor you if we need to help you start your programs, navigate you into the right directions, help you open those doors, because it's very important to be advocated by someone. And that's very important. And I want to speak about the speaker that I have now. She advocates for young people. She's I mean, young is relative, but I mean, she's older than I am, but she's also still young in the respect of, yeah. And she advocates for young people all the time actively. And without someone like that opening a door for you to be able to come in, those spaces won't be available to us. And so I take a page from her book to try and advocate for young people. So I open that door, leave the door open for other people to come in. And we need people to advocate for young people to be able to let you in. It's not just her because she's female. I have a mentor who's male as well, who also does that and advocates for young people to take part, because he had to be the one to say, you should be able to stand to be the deputy speaker. And if it wasn't for him advocating for me, I wouldn't have become, and I wouldn't have known what my capabilities are. Right. Even though I was still working, there still has to be a space to be like, okay, you are working, you see you're trying, but this is the door now. Enter. You have imposter syndrome, but you'll figure it out when you get there. You'll learn, and the only way to do that is if you actually do the job. So yeah.
No, I think that's really important. It's what was mentioned in the workshop, I think, yesterday as well, about when you're in these positions of power, being able to facilitate young people to get into the same thing. Because I think someone mentioned about gatekeeping. It's a very big thing for a lot of the older politicians as well, or whatever sort of sector you're trying to get into. There is gatekeeping that happens. So yeah, I completely agree with that. On that note, have you faced any sort of systemic challenges trying to get into the role that you're currently in, or from wider, or any structural challenges?
Not necessarily structural. Politically, it is quite difficult because, as a politician, every 5 years, for the lack of a better word, you got to sing for your supper. Yes. You got to come back. You got to be re-elected. So, I mean, that's always very difficult to start again, because then you have to go and now look at yourself in the mirror of how much work you've done, right, and have to convince other people that you're worth coming back for. So that is probably the hardest part. Another thing is other people believing why you should have gotten that job in the first place. Right. And I'm going to say something quite harsh, is that when I became the deputy speaker, one question, and some people ask me, is how did I sleep my way to get there? That is some of the issues that I had to face. Still facing, yeah. You're too young to have this position. Why you? Try to discredit me in the position that I've gotten. But it wasn't because I won't lie, and maybe it is my privilege. A lot of the times when I wanted to get into that space, I kicked the door open and I walked through. It also made it very helpful that I have things that I've collected to make sure that I'm like, I'm walking with a degree, a certificate, some hours. I have made it easier for someone to say, choose me. Yes. It's also very difficult to choose someone, yet you're sitting down and say, choose me as a young person, choose me as a woman, if I'm not actively trying to make change. Yes. I need to be also doing something to make sure that people can see that this is a young, dynamic woman. Let's choose her. It's also quite difficult, is that I feel like I'm standing on a mart of young women now, and I can't do much wrong, because it's the first wrong thing you're going to do is they're like, you see, this is why we're not taking young women or young people, because, she's doing that, or she isn't doing this, or look for any sort of anything. So I always feel like I have to do 10 times more just to get the first step in. But I mean, we're willing to do the work. That's why we're young. We have the energy to do so. So while I still am agile, I will definitely do so. And back to encouraging girls, I think we should stop waiting for permission. Yes. Kick the door. Walk in, figure it out when you get there.
If a man can do it, why can't I?
Why can't I? And if another woman can do it, why can't I? Exactly. And if I'm young and can do it, why can't you? And I know there's so many spaces and obstacles that women have to face. And that's why I'm in this position, to try and lessen those obstacles that women have to face to be able to get to those positions.
Thank you so much. I guess one of my final questions to you is, how do you think that we can make politics more inclusive and just for youth, for women, for vulnerable groups of people? How can we do that? What reforms do you sort of align with? Policies do you align with?
I think it's as I said, representation does matter. I think we need to make sure that doors are open for whether you're young, whether you're black, whether you're female, whether you're disabled. Those policies need to be in place, one, within our political parties, two, then they can start translating within our governments. What our province does is these intersectional parliaments that we do. So you have parliament for young people, parliament for a youth, you have young women's symposiums, LGBTQI symposiums, interfaith symposiums. So different type of symposiums for different types of groups of people who are marginalized, and they have a platform and a place to be able to voice those issues that they have and be able to be taken seriously, and those issues get to be debated in the legislature. So I think those systems in place are there. I think they need to be properly utilized and not be used as political pawns or tools, because then we don't get the proper usage out of it. So the public participation we're doing there needs to be effective properly. So sometimes it's not about whether we don't have the policies. It's how we effectively implement those policies for us to be able to get the best out of them, and so them to work. My job is to make sure that those policies are there, those policies are effectively done, that there's proper oversight between those policies that we're doing and the people who are meant to implement them, and that we participate with the public as often as we possibly can. And I have quite a passion for public participation, because there is no way we need to tell people what to do without them being part of the conversation to do so. Yeah. You know, it's like telling me what to do with my body, but I was never part of the conversation to begin with. So it's very, very important that public participation happens frequently, it happens often, and as wide as possible. It's like a research. Your research data is as good as the wide variety of the range of the research that sample size that you've done. And I think the more we do it, and the more often we do it, and then people also know the politicians are not sitting up there in some sort of pie in the sky. They're there with the people listening to what they're saying, so that when we are implementing those policies, it's because it's from the voice of the people and not voices that we just want to do. And I think that's what political parties need to remember, is that people voted us in, and people can then vote us out. So we need to make sure that the people that we are fighting for are the ones who have the most and the main voices ringing in our heads, for lack of a better word.
No, I completely agree with that. And I guess finally is, I want to open the floor to you to ask you, whether you'd like to share anything with our membership, with myself, anything that we haven't spoken about that you think it would be of value to the listeners.
The one thing I can say is this is very scary. It's very new, all of it, but politics is amazing space. And I'm very grateful to the CPA and the CWP for even allowing me to be a part of this, because the more I grow, the more I can go back to my country and my province and my constituents and impart that sort of knowledge, so that other people can open those sort of doors. But what I'm also grateful is that it's connecting me to parts of the world that would never have been able to be connected if I'm sitting in my country. And sometimes the questions, the answers that we need are happening in other countries and other provinces. We just need to be able to access that. And I think that's what the CWP is doing. It's making sure that parliaments, young women parliaments, or just women parliamentarians, have access to each other, and we can share that knowledge. And, we're much closer now with things like WhatsApp and Facebook and all that, social media, so that I can have a colleague who's another deputy speaker. I'm like, this is what I'm going through. What are you doing in your country? So we can have that collaboration. So and then we can enhance that in our own country. So I only think that is so much better. And I really hope that we can have sort of other offshoots in our province that are very similar to the CPA. Maybe they are, but I'm really hoping that they speak up more, collaborate more, so that we can have this within our country. We need to solve the problems of our countries. We need whole of society approach. This does not work if we do it ourselves. Yes. And I wish it could be even expand to even municipalities, smaller places, to be a part of these conversations with people who are in the coal face of dealing with individuals. And just to say to young girls and young women, just don't give up. Don't listen to that voice that says that you are not worthy. I say to one all the time, and to my young people, that you are worthy, you are enough, you can do this. We need you guys to help us figure out some of the hard, complex problems. And I don't want to do this forever. I need other young people to come up and take up those spaces, but also fight for those spaces. There's only so much I can do. But if you're not fighting for the space, then the space will then be occupied by someone else, and we can't let that happen. Slowly, we are regressing a little bit. We're not seeing as many women as even though we're fighting, but we need really young people to pick up that mantle. We need young people to fight, kick the doors, pick up the mantle, and be part of these specific spaces. I'm really grateful to CEWP and the CPA for actually having me being able to be in platforms like this and be able to speak. And I hope that they don't continue. I hope that you guys take up more stories of other young people in different small corners of the world and be able to get these stories, because I'm very lucky and fortunate to be part of this, but I really hope that other people get these opportunities as well.
Well, thank you so much, Deputy Speaker Tembe. I mean, everything you said has been super valuable, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. And thank you for your kind words about the CPA and CWP. And I hope you're enjoying the first day of the workshop too. But yeah, we'll end the podcast here. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Parliamentary Conversations in the Commonwealth. If you liked what you heard, then don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favourite listening platforms to stay up to date with our latest episodes. To find out more about the work of the CPA, please visit our website at www.cpahq.org or follow the links in the podcast description.